I now hand the conference over to Mr. Ashutosh Mishra from Ashika Stock Broking. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Thank you, Nirav. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Deepak Fertilizer and Petrochemical Corporation's 4Q FY21 earnings conference call. Today we have with us Mr. S.C. Mehta, Chairman and Managing Director, Mr. Amitabh Bhargava, President and Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Devashish Banerjee, President, Strategic Project, Mr. Mahesh Giridhar, President, Corporate Nutrition Business, Crop Nutrition Business, Mr. Suprash Jain, VP Corporate Finance, Mr. Devashish Kedia, GM Corporate Finance, and Mr. Deepak Balwani, Head Investor Relations. Thanks a lot, gentlemen, for giving us this opportunity. Without further ado, I would like to hand over to the floor to Mr. Sailesh Mehta for his opening remark, post which we can have a floor open for Q&A round. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Thank you, Ashutosh. Very warm good afternoon, good evening to all of you. I hope you and your families are staying safe and healthy. All my prayers for your safety. I would like to welcome you also to the Q4 and full year earnings conference call of Deepak Fertilizer. I hope you have all had a chance to look at the financial statement and the earnings presentation uploaded on the exchanges and our website. Ashutosh, my voice is okay?
Yes, sir, your voice is okay.
Okay, I'll continue. Thank you. So our performance during the year has indeed been heartening, and in fact, this has indeed been of our financial performance. During the year, we recorded revenue growth of over 24% over the previous year, and our EBITDA doubled, and net profit grew by over 4.5 times compared to FY20. This robust performance was driven by profitable growth in both the chemicals as well as fertilizer business verticals, with chemicals contributing about 80% of our profitability. So in a sense, Deepak Fertilizers is a little bit of a misnomer, with 80% contribution coming from chemicals. Better working capital management and better profitability generated almost 1,248 crore of cash flows. And the net debt, we could also pare it down, reduce it by almost 840 crores during the year. So now, as I was looking at while the details, our CFO, President Finance, Amitabh would be sharing with you, I thought I could touch upon at I would say a strategy level, what I think worked, and touch upon those aspects which would be giving you a broader picture. So if I ask myself what worked, and I further ask myself, will it sustain? And here are the thoughts I was wanting to share. One is last 2 years, but last year in particular, we have had a huge focus on cost optimization and also building some very, very robust systems. We have invested time and energy on to creating a raw material prognosis system, systems to hugely improve the logistics management. A lot of focus on energy and raw material efficiency improvements. We have, as a team, invested a lot of time, energy on an end-to-end S&OP system, which is the sales and operations planning, where right from demand generation to raw material planning is all integrated on a IT platform. We also invested into getting and analyzing the big data from farmers as a part of our fertilizer improvement system and lots of other work. So this is one area which I feel helped, and over the years it will continue to help. in terms of a backbone. Second aspect that we saw was a certain shift from China to India. And in particular, we saw that for our customers of nitric acid, this came out to be a positive trend. And that in turn has given us a positive current in the nitric acid business, which also I see as a trend likely to sustain and continue. The third aspect that we saw was that the key investments that we had made in the last 3-4 years, initially, if you recall, the tripling of our fertilizer capacity, a couple of years back, what we had invested into the Dahej acid complex. These investments have begun bearing fruits, and these have validated what we had visualized in terms of benefits. The fourth aspect is that we saw IPA demand in pharmaceutical and hygiene hand sanitizer needs continue. Of course, we did have some unplanned downtime because of catalyst change, and that got delayed because of COVID, the shipment. But otherwise, IPA remains in now a good stable phase. But the most important thing that I feel as an undercurrent that we saw getting validated, and we also see its positive current sustaining, is that we saw all our three businesses, the industrial chemicals, the mining chemicals, and fertilizer, all of them have been beautifully aligned with the country's growth story. And as we see India grow, whether in terms of its power needs derived from coal or its cement needs derived from limestone or the other infrastructure needs or the requirements of the pharmaceutical sector, where India continues to play a good role in the global pharma sector. Mining chemicals, industrial chemicals will have some excellent tailwind for further growth. So also as India's middle income group grows, the need for quality fruits and vegetables, horticulture, and the other food security requirements are only going to grow. So all the three sectors that we are into are gaining positive traction from their beautiful alignment with the country's growth story. And that is something that panned out last year, and I believe it will sustain over the years to come. The other aspect, another question that could come to anyone's mind is, will the margins sustain, particularly because of the large raw material hike that has happened, and we have seen, I would say in this early part of the quarter, fourth quarter. So there what we see is that certainly the cost optimization efforts and initiatives that we have made are going to continue and are going to further make inroads in the current year, which will help us to, contain and insulate the margins. Second, more important that we see is that we still have capacities as potentials, which we still need to tap. In some of the plants, we have reached maybe 80%, 85%, and we have another 10%, 15% available capacities for upsides. Plus, with a little bit of, I would say, marginal investment by way of debottlenecking, we could further enhance capacities. And that, of course, would help lowering the fixed costs. The third aspect that we are seeing is that demand for our finished products are all good. And with that positive current in the demand, a certain degree of pass-through of the costs is also something that we see quite workable, quite palatable. The fourth aspect that we are looking at when it comes to sustaining the margin, we are seeing that the product differentiation and the segment-based strategy that we have now implemented, not just in fertilizers, but in even TAN and other businesses, is certainly allowing us to somewhere have a good elbow room for premiums. And that is also something that is going to help insulate and sustain the margins. Above all, we also see that one large impact of cost increase came in the fertilizer sector as the global players increased the prices of phosphoric acid DAP hugely. Now that part of it was sitting heavy on us as everyone else in the industry. But we are happy to share that the government has taken quick and effective steps where they announced a huge hike in the DAP phosphoric acid P subsidy, almost 200% kind of addition. And that is going to somewhere mitigate a large chunk of the cost increase that emerged because of the raw material increase to the fertilizer business. What it also does is it will allow us in the industry to continue to provide fertilizers at a reasonable price to the farmers. And the worry that there could be any demand destruction because of price hikes is also something that is behind us now. As you are also aware, a number of weather apps, SkyMat and others, have predicted normal standard monsoon. So that is also going to be something that is going to help brisk movement in the fertilizer business. So with that, I do feel that what had worked for us in the last year has strong grounds to continue and sustain in the current year. The margins that we saw somewhere along, despite the hikes in raw material prices, we are seeing, a decent mechanism to deal with that. Now going forward, and this I am stretching beyond the next 12 months from a larger picture perspective, how do I see things panning out? So number one is that certainly the available capacity headroom will further help to bring the upsides in the years ahead. Second aspect that is there is that the balanced, profitable capex plan that we have in mind is going to be hugely leveraging 40 years of our industry knowledge. It will risk mitigate thanks to the backward integration, and standalone itself, we are seeing very good 18 to 20% IRR. So that is going to be going forward. Also, another thing that is going to have a very positive impact as we go forward. But above all, one aspect that we are seeing which is going to transform and change the very face of the companies and the businesses is our strategic drive to move from commodity to specialty, or to change our business model and refocus from product to total solution. I will give you one example of the success story as we see it emerging, and we got a very good taste of it, a very good validation of it in the fertilizer business. In the fertilizer business, SmartTech, the unique NPK that we make, we could raise its sales from around 2,20,000 tons to 4,38,000 tons. As you are aware, and Amitabh will explain more, the top line and bottom line both have had a very heartening upliftment in the fertilizer business. Now, over the last year, with this kind of a smart tech product going in the market, we are very happy to share that we have now garnered almost 2.5 million farmers as our customers, repeat customers. And that is giving me the satisfaction and validation that pricing, value proposition, yield, focus on quality, focus on service levels at the field level, all of it as a business model is getting validated. Now, even during the COVID period, the team had almost 18,000 webinar touch points with farmers. We touched almost 10 lakh farmers through social media. Additionally, we are looking at now a pipeline of crop-specific unique products. We have invested heavily now in creating an IP knowledge base, not just on the basis of the applied R&D for the products, but intensively looked at a new organization structure, training, IT tools, big data analytics, and creating a marketplace that appreciates value rather than just focusing on price. Now, this aspect of moving from commodity to specialty or from product to holistic services is going to be something that in the next few years will deepen and widen in all the three segments, and it promises to somewhere change the very face and transform the company from what it is today to what we see emerging in the next few years. So with that positive note and a broad strategy outline, I will now hand over to Amitabh to take you through the details and then, of course, be available for any questions and any clarifications that you may seek. Thank you and take care. Be healthy, be safe. Amitabh?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mehta. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining the Deepak Fertilizer and Petrochemicals conference call to discuss the Q4 and full year FY21 results. I was planning to cover some ground, but I think Mr. Mehta has covered a lot of ground in his opening remarks. So let me very quickly, I think I'll skip some of my speech and I'll just come back to the fact that during the year, our manufactured chemical business recorded a revenue of 2,657 crores in FY21. And this was an increase of 17.4% compared to FY20. Manufactured IPA recorded growth of 50% to 586 crores. Manufactured assets for the year recorded a revenue of 530 crores, which is an increase of 13.25% compared to last year. And the strong growth in nitric acid business was mainly driven by a substantial increase in demand and result in better realization. In addition, the Dahej plant operated at the full capacity during Q4 FY21, which resulted in an increase of CNA sales volume up by almost 51% compared to last year. Manufactured TAN recorded an outstanding quarter, supported by strong demand for low-density ammonium nitrate and AN melt. These are the two TAN products. We achieved highest ever quarterly AN melt volumes during the quarter. The revenue of TAN business was 1,138 crores during the year. In line with the improvement in cement and steel-related sectors in the domestic market in Q4, demand for Elden also improved. The improved domestic demand resulted in a better price realization for AN Melt and HDAN, and the same helped us to record robust profits in TAN business this year, despite lower volumes which were largely impacted in H1 due to lockdown. I think fertilizer aspect Mr. Mehta covered. The other small part that I might mention is that other than our NP and NPK Smart Tech product, Bensulf, which is another product that we have, the sales increased by 27.13% to about 70 crores in FY21, primarily driven by differentiated super fast Bensulf we had launched in Q1 of FY21. So during the year, our IPA plant operated at a capacity utilization of 79%, and both acids and TAN operated at 74%. In the fertilizer segment, NP NPK plants operated and utilization levels were 73%. Bensulf operated at 51% utilization, and I think that's the point Mr. Mehta was mentioning earlier, that we have sufficient headroom in terms of capacity utilization to help us meet the demand that we are seeing very strong in each one of our segments. So I think we remain confident of continuing our growth trajectory while extending full support to our customers, suppliers, and other valued stakeholders in these testing times. With this, I'm happy to take your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and one on their touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and two. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. Participants, you may press star and one to ask a question. The first question is from the line of Priyank Gupta from Guardian Advisors. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me, giving me an opportunity to ask the question. So my question is, the ongoing expansion in both the businesses, the ammonia and TAN, PAN, what kind of top line and bottom line can we expect to be added in FY23 and 24 when they start operations? As I see in investor presentation that they shall be on stream in FY23 and 24 respectively.
So in ammonia, it's a 500,000 ton capacity, and by and large we are confident of utilizing these capacities fairly close to 100% right from the beginning, because that's pretty much our own captive requirement is there. Now ammonia, we've seen that in last 10 years, 15 years, we bought ammonia anywhere between $370 to $390 of FOB Middle East, and add to that, it roughly adds about $80 to $90 by the time it lands at our battery Nimitta plants. So if those prices remain, in fact today's prices are even stronger than those prices, but we are going by what we've seen in last 10, 15 years in terms of the average price of ammonia. So if the prices of ammonia, let's say the history repeats, then we are looking at anywhere between, I would say, $450 to $470, $480 per ton of ammonia price for 500,000 tons. I think you can do that calculation. As such, again, from EBITDA margin perspective, after considering gas costs and also the cost of, conversion, we are again anywhere between $160 to $200 of per ton kind of margins can materialize from an EBITDA margin perspective. So that's the broad range in which the top line and the EBITDA levels should vary for an ammonia plant. As far as the TAN business is concerned, I guess One can extrapolate our current capacities. We've done this year about 4,27,000 tons. This new capacity is about 376,000 tons. So you could maybe apply a ratio in terms of what kind of top line this business would generate.
For ammonia, we can assume sales of $450 per ton and $150 ton of EBITDA ballpark as a thumb rule.
Yeah, I mean, see, ammonia, as you know, that ammonia prices, it being a commodity that is sort of susceptible to volatility. So to that extent, the prices we'll have to make certain assumptions based on last 10 years or a 15-year kind of a. The only aspect maybe that I just wanted to clarify that ammonia as such, given that it is going to be used for our own consumption, also it would not add top line to the at a console level. But margins are pretty much what you would then, as opposed to sort of buying ammonia from outside, since we are producing our own ammonia, those margins should add to our bottom line.
Understood.
I was talking about the top line of our ammonia plant as such. At console level, it'll get merged, so it won't add top line as such.
Thank you so much, and congratulations on a spectacular result. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Lokesh Manik from Vallum Capital. Please go ahead.
Yes, good evening to everyone. Amitabh, just continuing on the previous question. So, just a clarification that our cost of production for ammonia with the new plant would be around $160 to $200, and then you add about $90 logistics cost, and then you add conversion margin, so you reach about $450 today. Is that understanding correct, broadly?
See, the ammonia landed price, if you assume anywhere between $350, $360 to $380 of FOB Middle East. Today, at that price, the landed price of ammonia, you add about $80 to $90 to it because it's
right.
Custom. So that's
right.
If FOB Middle East prices, and if you were assuming that that's the price at which you would transfer ammonia from our new plant to our downstream products, then that's the kind of top line that we would have. As far as the cost is concerned, cost of course is a function of gas prices. Gas prices, and to that extent, we see so as against $450, $460 of the ammonia prices, landed prices from this plant. We see the gas cost of anywhere between $220 to $240 per ton of ammonia. Add to it about, let's say, about another $40, $45 in terms of conversion cost. So you're looking at 260, 280 thereabout in terms of the cost of production. And that's the number that I was saying, that anywhere between $160 to $200 margin, EBITDA margins that you would have.
Right, because your cost gets fixed at $260. So relatively, you have $160 to add to your EBITDA. I mean, in terms of.
That's
okay, understood. And the second question was just one more clarification. I've read in the news that the increase by the government in subsidy has been announced on the DAP front, and the DAP is essentially a competing product in non-urea segment. So, is there clarification from the government that they're also increasing for NPK as well?
Yes. So they have in NPK and P component, government has kept at the same level. The P component, which is in sync with the way the DAP prices have gone up, they've also increased P component, which is roughly by 200%. Increase in P component. So for NPK also the same then P component then applies, depending on your, in the product that you have, whatever is the N, P, and K component, the P component would have that higher P subsidy.
Right. That's it from my side. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Pratik from Elara Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, sir, and congratulations on a very strong set of numbers. I have firstly a couple of clarifications. In the opening remarks, Mr. Mehta has alluded that we are already at 80% capacity utilization and the demand looks very strong. So just wanted to understand, how much more can our capacity utilization go up from here? He also talked about some debottlenecking that we can do. But broadly, if we talk about say 3 to 4 years down the line, we would be already, in next 1 to 2 years, considering the strong demand that he has been talking about, we should be at 90-95% utilization. So what after that? Because if we have to cater to this rising demand, then some capacity has to be some planning has to be done from now onwards, so that in next 2 years we'll already have that new plants up and running. So just wanted to understand on the broader thought process on the capacities going forward.
So I think if you look at segment by segment, starting with NPK, we are currently at about 70 or 72 odd %. Now this, of course, last year was as low as 46%. We are up to 73%. This is on a 6 lakh ton capacity. So within 6 lakh, we have headroom available of almost 20-25%, almost 27% for that matter. Now in NPK, with a little bit of a debottlenecking, particularly on the raw material storage and on the evacuation side, 6 lakh ton capacity can be increased to 8 lakh ton, because the process plant itself is capable of handling 8 lakh tons. It's the raw material and evacuation that needs to be upgraded. So that's the kind of scope that is there in NPK. In NP, our capacity utilization was about 78%. In the past, we have been ballpark in the range of 70 to 80%, but we've done some work on the plant side, so that would allow us to improve the capacity utilization. So 78%, I would say that over a period of time, we could obviously take it closer to 100%. But that could be a few quarters it might take to do that. TAN capacity this year we've done 88% roughly, and TAN in the past in 18-19, if you see, our capacity utilization was 105%. So we have done 105%, but this year, because the cement plants in Q1 were by and large shut, there were also challenges on the infrastructure side. And we ourselves face certain challenges from a maintenance perspective. So the overall capacity utilization this year was low, but it can definitely be taken to what we've already achieved in 18-19. And TAN also has certain potential for debottlenecking. We are studying, technical studies are currently under progress to see how much can we do and what would it take to do that. But TAN does have that debottlenecking capacity. Acids, the Taloja acids, again we faced challenges in terms of maintenance. So capacity utilization was low, about 74%. While in the past, not in the immediate past, but earlier we've touched capacities upwards of 85%, 90% thereabouts. So that does have the headroom there. And IP, again, because of maintenance challenges, because of COVID situation, our capacity utilization was 79%, while in the past we've done, last year itself was 86%, previous years was upwards of 90%, closer to 100%. So there is a headroom sitting in the current capacity. And after that, I guess once these capacities are exhausted, our TAN expansion on East Coast is the only one that we currently have in terms of board approved projects. If there is a case for expanding our capacities in acid or IPA, that's something that would be taken up at the right time. But there is no such decision as yet.
Sure, sir. Thanks for the detailed explanation. So secondly, on the margin front, in the chemicals, we've probably reported one of the best ever margins, and it's a big jump from what we've seen in the past. So broadly, I mean, you definitely said that we can sustain on this margin. But considering that the raw material prices are going up, how should one look at these margins? From the near-term perspective, maybe next 6 to 8 months. Do we have that much ability to pass on the pricing to the customers, or there will be some sort of hit on the margin?
Actually, as far as acid is concerned, we are seeing strong demand, largely coming from, as Mehta was also mentioning, that a lot of the intermediate product supply chains are looking at India, and we are seeing that demand or expansion sort of coming up in our downstream customers, as well as some new players have come in terms of requiring nitration for their downstream chemical production. So that's, as far as acid is concerned, there is that demand, and so long as the demand is strong, one would expect that any increase in the raw material cost would have lot more ability in terms of to pass it on to the customer. Some of our assets, of course, also with long-term customers, we do have arrangements of our raw material pass-through. So to that extent, even that plays a role in passing our raw material prices. Your point was on the chemicals. So other than in IPA, well, in IPA, as much as I think the RGP, that your refinery grade propylene prices have gone up. We've seen to an extent IPA prices have also come up from the bottom that we saw in the last year itself. But IPA prices, it will be fair to assume that IPA margins will not remain to the levels that we saw the last full year, because Q1 was very strong, and that reflected in our full year margin. But IPA long-term average margins should sustain. What we saw, the section of margins in 1920, that is certainly behind us, because IPA is seeing some new segments coming in terms of its demand. So I would say that, but IPA, again, we need to look at that overall from our consolidated profit perspective at a gross margin level or at a contribution margin level. IPA contributed only 15-16%. So it's an important segment, but we have other engines of growth as far as our margins are concerned.
Sure, sir. Even in IP, can we expect the demands to sort of taper down? Because I think there are other players who have also entered, plus ethanol companies. I mean, the sugar companies are also making ethanol and catering to the hand sanitizer demand. So to that extent, can there be some impact on the demand as well as on the pricing?
So the effect of ethanol being one of the ingredients for hand sanitizer has, in some senses, already come into the demand side. So demand from sanitizer segment has by and large stabilized, or whatever ethanol prices were to, or rather ethanol as a component of or one of the ingredient of hand sanitizer is concerned, that part has already matured. But if you see, more than 75, almost 80% of demand for IPA comes from pharma segment, and pharma segment continues to remain strong. Overall, earlier we were the only producer until Deepak Nitrite capacity came in. We were the only producer. But even with the capacities that they have brought into the market, we are still looking at a huge gap between the demand, our demand, and the domestic production. So the import will continue, and to that extent, domestic manufacturers, ourselves and the others, would not face any demand challenge as such. Prices are not just a function of, I would say, sanitizer segment. Like I said, the most of the demand comes from pharma segment, and so long as that continues, prices would have a little bit of a different dynamics in terms of whether IPA. So IPA is produced from two different sources, that is propylene and acetone. And depending on what the commodity prices of acetone, IPA, and propylene are in terms of relative terms, you may see some obviously volatility in IPA prices. But we are seeing that the long term, and this is the point I was making, that last year's margins may not sustain, but long term average margins that we've seen in this business are definitely something that are here to stay, as we see.
Sure. That's very helpful. So any thoughts on the fertilizer margin, because we've done some 7.5% in FY21 despite a healthy volume growth. But this again, if we consider that we have branded product like SmartTech, and we have definitely a good market share in Maharashtra, but our other competitors in the industry are doing much better than that in terms of the margins. So what is the driver for margins in fertilizer space? What could be the other, over the next 2 years?
So fertilizer segment, our strategy, as Mr. Mehta was also mentioning, our strategy is more in terms of differentiation, which is what is reflected in our volumes that we have seen in NPK. Now, the way margins for us, per ton margins would have two components. One is as the capacity utilization would improve from current 73% to closer to 100%, and even from 6 lakh ton to 8 lakh ton, we would be able to spread our fixed costs over a larger volume. And to that extent, we believe that with capacity utilization, our margins should also improve. Also, what we are seeing is a differentiation that we have brought about in the market. We are also bringing in more products which are crop specific. We are also into non-subsidized segment, that is Bensulf and water soluble fertilizer. We are looking at bringing in products in those segments also, and a combination of all of that should reflect in our margin. So it's not fair for us to compare ourselves with our competition in a sense, because they have a different strategy in the market, maybe volume strategy or whatever is their strategy. But for us, the differentiation is what we are trying to bring, and trying to bring the new products from our stable through our in-house R&D, and that's the basis on which we believe our margins going forward should be better.
Sure, sir. I think just lastly, in the opening remarks, Mr. Mehta mentioned that we want to move away from the commodity sort of business and towards specialty, and rather than just providing products, move on the solution sort of business model. So he spoke about the fertilizer space. Can you help us understand on chemicals, especially in something like acids? There are a lot of companies who are using our acid and doing value addition and getting more margins. So is that kind of thing we are also planning to enter into, or maybe in some other chemicals, maybe since we are putting up a big ammonia plant, so can we think of some value added products from ammonia as well going forward?
So as of now, there is no such plan has been announced by us. so I wouldn't go in that zone. As far as assets are concerned, what we have tried doing over a period of time is to segment the market, because assets also, depending on the concentration of assets, finds its application in different end user segments. What we've tried to cover through differentiation is to cater to each one of these segments, rather than giving only one or two types of only a concentrated or a dilute nitric acid. We've looked at different concentrations, understanding the requirement of certain segments in terms of their concentration, in terms of their any other feature that they require in acid. So that's the way acid we have done the differentiation. As far as TAN is concerned, within TAN, as you are aware, that there are three different products, that is ammonium nitrate melt, low density ammonium nitrate, and high density ammonium nitrate. Here the low density ammonium nitrate is something that largely the public sector coal had so far not used LDAN. It was restricted to limestone, infrastructure and private coal. But through a lot of that work that we have done with public sector coal mines, we are establishing the value that our LDAN based explosives or LDAN brings it to their overall mining cost. And we are to that extent trying to expand our LDAN segment, also LDAN based explosive segment, and also trying to bring the not just the product but to provide certain services right at the mine mouth to our customers, so that we can give them a better experience of the blasting experience, and that is what he meant when he said that we are on one hand in chemicals we are trying to differentiate or segmentize our products, but also trying to moving away from just product to maybe products plus services. Likewise in IP also we have tried bringing in differentiation to pharma grade IPA and the IPA for other end usage. That's what we are trying to do in each of our products, which allows us to cater to different segments and also be able to give them better product and services and accordingly price those products.
Also, that's very helpful.
Thank you very much. Pratik, I'll request you to come back in the question queue for a follow-up question. The next question is from the line of Kumar from Systematics Group. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, sir. So just a couple of basic clarification. You mentioned that Bensulf revenue contribution was 70 crores in the crop protection segment. So the remaining 2100 crore would be composed of what is the breakup across NPA and NPK?
So I think overall breakup. I think some of these breakups you'll be able to see it on our website. But overall, if you look at, let me briefly try to give you a breakup. I think in CNB, your question is about Bensulf and NP and NPK.
So 20 crores.
Oh, you're talking about the quarter, the full year number.
Full year numbers.
Would you have the full year number breakup in terms of the Bensulf and NP and NPK?
I will share shortly.
Okay. If you move to the next question, I'll come back to you.
So would it be fair to assume that this 2100 crores that NP and NPK is there, so that is totally subsidy-based revenue for us?
No, the Bensulf would not be. To an extent, we have some water-soluble fertilizers that would also not be. But a big part of it, which is our NP and NPK, is a subsidy-based fertilizer.
Okay. And sir, in the 450 crores traded product that we have, so what are the products that we are trading in?
In fertilizer, you mean?
Yes, sir.
So fertilizer, we are typically, when we trade, we look at our customers' requirements. Sometimes our dealers and retailers do look for a wider basket of products from us. So to that extent, DAP could be one of the products that we may opportunistically, to meet our customers' requirement, we may trade. Sometimes certain NPK certain NPK products which we ourselves don't manufacture, or if there is a in a certain period there is a higher demand but we are not able to cater to that, we also produce that, or rather trade that. And then of course we also trade into water soluble fertilizers and certain specialty fertilizers which are with different micronutrients. So those are the other fertilizers that we trade into.
Okay. And sir, in the chemical segment, so we have around 1140 crores of TAN, 530 crores of ACID, and 586 crores IPA. So the remaining about 400 crores is coming from which products?
Some of it would be this year. It would be, we have carbon dioxide. We have, of course, this year methanol was, perhaps there was no methanol this year. But we sell propane, we sell dyes, we sell, and then there are, we also have our subsidiary. I think this is also consolidation of our subsidiary, which is Platinum Glass, which is an Australian subsidiary where we have 65% stake. So a combination of all of these.
Okay. And sir, we have a trading revenue in the chemical segment as well. So we are dealing in the same products or different products?
We mainly trade in IPA.
Okay.
And to an extent, we have certain surplus ammonia. It can also be opportunistic trading of ammonia. But that's only to the extent that there are surplus.
That will be also. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Naresh from Samisha Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for taking my question, sir. First question is, in the fertilizer segment, if we see the blended realization of NP and NPK, then from FY19, FY20 and FY20, it has been around 30 rupees per kg. And this is despite your SmartTech product growing in the 3 years. So why has our realization stayed at the same level despite you mentioned that it is a premium product and the realizations have also helped you grow your top line and margins as well. So that was the first. And second, what was your requirement for ammonia for FY20 and FY21 in terms of quantity? I wanted to know.
So your first question is that why was our realization low in terms of the bulk fertilizer?
Not low. Question was that it has remained at around 30 rupees despite your SmartTech product growing from FY19 to FY20 and then in FY21. So why the realization has not increased in line with the premium product which we sold?
So the premium product, first of all, when we say premium product, our prices are better than the prices, to an extent better than the prices of a same grade NPK product by competition. But between NP and NPK prices, the prices can first of all can vary depending on the raw material prices and the subsidy on NPK that is given by the government. So as such, by certain component or certain product, the share of NPK going up into our overall product basket, it is not necessary that the prices also have to, or the realization has to commensurately go up. Also, what is the source of your, where have you picked up the 30 rupees per ton number? I'm not clear.
No, so I am just adding the revenues of NP and NPK and dividing it by the volumes of NP and NPK which you have reported. So that is how I have calculated.
So my colleague Mahesh is there. He is President Fertilizer. Mahesh, would you like to take this question?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Amitabh, and thanks for your question. So I think if you are looking into only simply by dividing value by the quantity, rupee per ton or per kg, I think there is in the data you will find that the prices keep changing. So raw material prices keep changing. As the raw material price change, the base price also will change. So you will not able to get the right reflection based on that on the let's say apple to apple comparison can't happen, because as you know that last year in the Q1 the phosphate price was $6 or $7 per ton. Now it is $9.98 per ton. So with respect to same volume, the amount will significantly change. However, coming back to your main question of what's happening to our margins, I think that is reflected in our improvement of segment results, which is moving up to 7.1% now, from previous quite significantly low. So that is coming from both improvement in the margin, that is coming because of the launches of the value-based products, where we have certainly been able to charge, let's say, premium based on the value under the reasonableness clauses, and as well as increase in the volume. So both have driven the segment profit to this level.
Okay. And on the ammonia quantity, how much was your requirement for FY20 and FY21?
Deepak, would you like to take that question?
So basically for quarter 4, the ammonia production instantly was roughly about 21,000, whereas the consumption was 1,10,000. Similarly, if we look for the full year for FY21, then the ammonia production internally we did roughly about 86,000, although the consumption was roughly about 3,87,000.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Sachin Kasera from Swan Investments. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon. I had 2-3 questions. Regarding the capex. So your presentation has given the number of capex for the ammonia. If you could share with us, other than ammonia, the capex for the TAN as well as the other divisions, what is the capex you're planning to incur for 22 and 23?
So we have, as far as TAN is concerned, we are still in the process of getting our statutory approval, land acquisition, and the other basic on-the-ground project development that is progressing. But at this stage, we don't have a definitive plan. It also depends on when we would start these capex. As far as other than that, we don't have any other capex planned. We, of course, there's the regular maintenance capex that happens in the plant is the only other capex that we plan.
What is the total spend approximately going to be for the TAN plant as and when we do it?
That's what I said. See, unless we have a clear understanding of one is we have land to be acquired, so the construction cost would depend on the site. Also, we are we need to obviously we have detail engineering etc. that we would do with the help of our engineering consultant, and once they do the tendering from various contractors, that's when we would have a sense of what the broad numbers are going to be like.
Sure. My second question was on the leverage. So this year we have done a great job of repaying almost 800 crores of debt and bringing on the net debt below 2,000 crores. But as we spend close to around 2,800 crores on the ammonia facility in the next 2 years, how do you see your balance sheet and debt equity, and how do you have any plans in terms of raising some other resources so that you can keep the debt equity or the leverage under control, or you would be comfortable in terms of it going up further?
See, one is as much as we would take debt for ammonia, we have roughly 240 to 250 crores of debt repayment that happens every year. So simultaneously, we would also have the debt, which is the current debt which is there, which would get amortized. That's number one. Number two, a part of the debt or what you see in the debt numbers is also the foreign currency convertible bond that we have from IFC, and they have a compulsory convertible debenture at the Smart Chain level. Accounting terms, these are also clubbed with the debt. But CCD obviously is being a compulsory convertible debenture. After 6 to 7 years, that will convert it into equity. Likewise, FCCG, depending on the conversion price and the option exercised by IFC, may also there is a strong possibility of it getting converted into equity. So that's as far as the way debt itself would move, even if nothing changes. But on top of it, obviously with the capex ammonia, we would add debt. The second aspect is that if you see this year we've done almost 1,250 odd crores of net cash accruals. Now, while I'm not going into the area of making any sort of future prognosis, but all the discussions we had in terms of sustainability of our business and the capacity utilizations that are sitting with us, it does give one a sense of what kind of internal cash generation is possible. So even after incurring those costs or adding that debt, we have the ability to generate cash internally. That's one. Number two, we have non-core assets, in form of a land in the heart of Pune. Also, we have a subsidiary in Australia where we have 65% stake. These are, in some sense, these are non-core to our core business of industrial chemical, mining chemical, and fertilizer. And these have the value which, based on different estimates, upwards of 700 to 800 crores. So at the right time, we also have the ability to unlock this capital and use it for these projects or for repayment of debt. So those are the other means of generating internal cash. But we are obviously mindful that we don't want the leverage ratios to go out of the prudent norms, and that's what we will try to do.
So this 700 to 800 crores that you mentioned, ballpark, will 2 to 2.5 years be a fair time frame to estimate in terms of unlocking these 700 crores of non-core assets, or it could take even much longer?
It could be even earlier.
Okay, because I was thinking that since we have almost 28 crores of capex lying the next 2 years in ammonia, we may try and do it before that.
It could be even earlier, yes.
Okay. And so no plan as of now of raising any QIP or equity or rights issue, nothing like that?
Board hasn't taken any call. As and when they do, we will inform the investors.
Okay. Just coming on this TAN thing, sir, since this heavy capex of ammonia in the next 2 years, will we also look in terms of, maybe deferring it by 12 to 18 months till the time the ammonia capex is done and we more?
No, there is no such plan. We would be completing this in next 24 months. That's the plan we have.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Nishit Shah from Equirus Capital. Please go ahead.
Good evening, sir, and congratulations on super set of numbers. Sir, most of my questions are answered. One thing I wanted to understand is what is the impact of this second wave for us in terms of demand and in terms of pricing for our industrial chemical segment?
Well, as of now, as far as our own plant operations are concerned, we are much better prepared in the second wave. As far as our customers are concerned, there could definitely be disruptions at their end. But so far we are seeing IPA, acid and TAN, and as you would see in the last quarter's numbers, we are seeing those the demand from each of these three segments remaining strong. In fact, what I had mentioned earlier, and Mr. Mehta also alluded to that, is that with a lot of the intermediate chemical supply chain showing interest in Indian manufacturing facilities, we are seeing not just the potential expansion from our key customers, but some of the new customers have come up in the nitric acid segment. So we do see that there is in fact going to be a shortage of nitric acid in foreseeable future, and the prices should also reflect that demand supply situation.
Okay. So my second question is, I wanted to understand the current prices of phosphoric acid and ammonia. And what is our take? Will we be able to achieve our 8 to 9% margins back this year?
So phosphoric acid prices are $998 to a ton. Ammonia prices are hovering between $450 to $480 per ton FOB Middle East. And you can add to that the other components as far as our landed price is concerned. So these are the prices. Now, as we discussed earlier, that as far as the phosphoric acid prices are concerned, government has almost tripled the subsidy, so 2% increase in fee subsidy, which in a way provides a huge relief to the industry as much as to us in terms of taking over a substantial part of increase in fee. In the other raw material prices, ammonia would have some implication as far as the fertilizer is concerned, but fertilizer, we mentioned earlier that it with a lag, the raw material prices do get in a way passed on to in the finished good prices, but that lead lag effect can always be possible in fertilizer segment. In other segments, we are seeing also the counter forces in a sense. The whole demand supply situation in acid, for example, would we believe that it would have the ability to take or absorb the increase in ammonia cost. Likewise, a part of our segment in acid has cost plus kind of pricing mechanism. And TAN, as much as the ammonia prices have gone up, the TAN prices have also gone up to reflect that. So I guess in each one of these, the strong demand on the finished good product side seems to have the ability to absorb these raw material prices. The lead or lag effect could always be there in certain quantities.
Thank you. Nishit, I'll request you to come back in the question queue. The next question is from the line of Nikhil Gara from Abacus Asset Managers. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. Thanks for the opportunity. So my first question is sort of relating to the nitric acid market. If you could give some qualitative aspects as to how the market is, how is the market size, and since we are seeing such strong demand, is there any element of imports that also we can see in the market?
So a lot of these numbers, and I'm mindful of the time shortage, a lot of these numbers you would find in our corporate presentation in terms of the demand supply situation. As such, to your last part of your question, nitric acid generally is not amenable to huge import because of it being corrosive, and it requires different specialized metallurgy to transport through tankers. So generally speaking, the domestic demand is met by domestic production. There is a very little import that takes place.
And so just on the competitive aspect in nitric acid, apart from us, is there any larger domestic player who operates in this market?
Yeah, there are 2 or 3 public sector fertilizer companies. They also produce nitric acid.
Okay. And so just on continuing on this margin aspect and the pricing aspect in nitric acid, so this increase in ammonia prices, is it also so as in is it reflected in the Q4 prices of nitric acid, or this is purely based on demand aspect and the improved sentiment?
So I think there was in Q4 the prices of ammonia had not gone up as much as they have gone up in Q1 this year.
So yeah, so exactly. That's the reason.
12%. So 11-12%. Yeah. Now that to a limited extent, some of our contracts which have raw material pass-through kind of a mechanism, it would reflect. But a good part of the realization in nitric acid in Q4 reflects the demand-supply situation.
So then do we see this this realizations improving even further so that as we pass on this price hike and everything in nitric acid specifically?
Realization may, yeah, certainly because of raw material pass-through. I won't comment on the margin as such.
Okay, sir. And so just 2 more questions if I may.
I'll request you to come back in the question queue.
It's just one question specifically regarding fertilizer. Hello. Yeah, thank you. So just once when we had seen this increase in the prices for phosphoric acid, we had seen some slump, especially in April in the fertilizer sales. Now with this subsidy coming through, do we believe that this should sort of solve the issue at least on the demand aspect? And how do you really see the demand now from here onwards?
Mahesh, would you like to?
I can answer, Amitabh. Thank you very much for the question. See, I think the Kharif season picks up from, let's say, May onward, and this is a timely action by Government of India. And it is right, and till let's say April middle or till May middle actually, most of the companies are still supplying the old pricing because of the Amitabh said we always in lag. So at that time there was demand was staying, and then as the prices start going up from middle of May already recently has been announced. So we are not expecting any demand destruction. We are seeing a solid Kharif going forward. It's already started actually with the good forecast of rainfall. Demand would rather go up, not this far.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take one last question from the line of Neil Parekh from Tamora Investment Managers. Please go ahead.
Sir, thank you for the opportunity. I had one question on the IPA front. So as you mentioned that even the realizations are sort of are stable right now. But initially we had a plan of an expansion of about 1 lakh metric tons. So I think we are not going ahead with the capex plan there.
No, we are not.
Okay. And so just actually I missed the opening commentary. If you can just share the value numbers, the revenue numbers from the IPA front. IPA and acid, the Q4 revenue.
Deepak, would you like to take that question, please?
Deepak sir, may I request you to unmute your line from your side and go ahead with the answer? Deepak sir, we are unable to hear you. May I request you to unmute your line from your side? So there's no response from Deepak sir's line.
Your question is on IPA revenues in Q4.
Yes, sir.
So one moment, I'm reconnecting Deepak sir back to the call.
Sir, it's 110 crore.
110 crore. And for acids and TAN, sir?
So sorry to interrupt you. You have line for Deepak sir reconnected back to the call. So you may go ahead.
Hello.
Deepak sir?
Yeah. What is the question?
IPA is 110. Acid is 186 crores.
And TAN was 395 crores.
395 crores.
All right. So just one last question, sir, on standalone. So the employee expenses for the quarter look little lower, sir. So any one-off there?
Yeah, I think that what had happened is up to Q3 we had made certain assumptions on management remuneration, post which we got shareholders approval. So that was trued up in Q3. But by Q4, we've actually management remuneration has been lower than what we had anticipated. So Q4 numbers, or what you see in Q4 standalone, is in a way lower, and it doesn't it's not an apple-to-apple comparison with previous quarter.
All right, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, that will be the last question for today. I will now hand the conference over to Mr. Amitabh sir for closing comments.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining the call. It was a record year for us, and we hope to be able to continue our performance going forward. So I wish all of you a safe and healthy period going ahead. Please take care, and thank you very much for joining.
Thank you very much. On behalf of Ashton Broking Limited, that concludes this conference. Thank you for joining us. You may now disconnect your lines. Thank you.